Hi, I'm Chelsea Van Voorhis. I'm a Marquetry artist and I have an article coming out in the January edition of Fine Woodworking. In that article, I talk about the accessibility of working with wood veneer and I show you the steps start to finish of how to create your own abstract marquetry panel. In this video, I'm going to show you some of my personal techniques to cutting the veneer and laying out the pattern. Working with veneer is awesome. You don't need expensive tools or some big shop. It's really quite affordable if you're just starting out. Also, it's really not as complicated or as fragile as you might think. There are plenty of ways to fix an error if it may arise. Also, it's just a very expressive way to work with wood. I encourage everyone to try it out. You might fall in love with it just like I did. For more information, please check out my full article in the January edition of Fine Woodworking. So what I've got here is the start of another abstract panel. You can see I have part of my veneer cut already, and this is my substrate. Now what I want to do is I want to add a circle up here. It's a little bit difficult to tell when the veneer is not pressed and finished, but when it is, the grain is really going to be highlighted. So I can see here that the grain is going in this direction. If I placed it like this, it would line up with the grain of the black limba in the background, and I feel like that would give it just a little bit of flatness. So I'm actually going to spin it. I'm going to spin it a little bit more. So that way, it's now contrasting the direction of the black limba, and it's contrasting the grain direction of the Anna gray. Now to cut this out, I'm just going to place it where I want and put a few pieces of tape around so it doesn't move around. Then I'm going to carefully cut it out. We're all humans, and it's not possible to be perfect, but as best you can, you want to keep your knife perpendicular to the veneer. If you kind of have your wrist tilted a little bit, it's going to make an angle cut on the veneer. So just nice and slow. When I get to a piece of tape, I can remove that piece and move it over to where I already cut. And then I flip it over and tape it to the back. Little gaps here and there are not that big of a deal, but overlapping veneer is a problem. That will cause your glue up to kind of be bumpy and you'll never be able to sand that out. The other thing about placing the grain line in this direction is that it is going to help fill gaps. So this piece When the glue is added, the moisture in the glue is going to spread the grain this direction. The black limba is going to spread this direction, and the anagray is going to spread this direction. So no matter where you are in the seam, there's going to be grain filling that up. Another thing that helps kind of hide some gaps is when you're doing contrasting colors. So because this is so dark and it's next to two lighter colors, visually your eye is never going to see those gaps. Your eye doesn't want to find the gaps, it'll just pass right over it. If I had a light piece next to another light piece, like this, and you had a little gap, you would see that a lot more clearly. Okay, and now I'm going to add my second circle. I've got the grain going in this direction here, so I want it opposite up here. Just going to place it where I want it. And there we go. The next thing I want to do is have some of the yellow and zombie up here. So I'm just going to kind of lay this over my sheet and kind of look, how much do I want? Kind of like this diagonal shape, but looking at the grain line, I have the grain line direction going here and it's matching that. And I don't really like that. So I'm going to twist it around and kind of play around and see if I like that a little bit more. Okay. Seeing what shapes I like. I don't want too much. So I think that's really nice. Now what I could do is I could cut this with a ruler, or I could just use this edge as my straight line. Before, when we did the circle, I was pretty aggressive and I tried to do the whole circle in one pass, but since this is a straight line and I'm going across the grain, I'm going to want to do multiple soft passes. And since this little piece right here is a lot of short grain, I want to make sure I don't pull too hard and yank out those fibers. So that's why I did the cross. And I cut from the back and just go straight down through the fiber instead of slicing through it. And I did lose the tip there, so I want to make sure that doesn't go too far. I'm just going to tape this in place. And then get this side. Oops, this is not cut all the way through. There we go. I still got a little tip right there. I'm going to kind of squeeze them together so all the seams are tight, and then I can put the tape down. So as you can see, because this is short grain, this piece did break into a couple different pieces. Now, that's really not that big of a deal. It broke on the grain line, so I can kind of just squeeze them back together and put tape over it. I just want to make sure it's feeling nice and flat. For this tiny section that came out, I was able to save the little bit. So I can just place it right back in there. Now, if you actually lost the tip and it flew somewhere and you can't find it, that's okay too. What you can do is take a piece from your sheet, make sure the grain direction is going in the same grain direction as your cutout piece. You don't want it going like that. And you can set it in there and just cut a little piece out, shove it in that hole. It's not that big of a deal if it breaks. So now I technically have a whole panel. Every piece of it is covered in veneer, every little section is filled, but it's not very balanced. I have some smaller pieces here, but then larger pieces, and I want to add in a few more smaller details. Now the reason why I picked the black limba is because it has a really big, grain pattern, so it's really obvious. I wanted to use that in larger sections. This dark walnut, you know, I like the color, but the grain isn't all that exciting, so I used it in like smaller highlighting pieces. And then the Anna Gray, because it's the lightest color, I do like the grain, but I also just like the color, and I think it'll pop. So I'm just gonna add a few more pops of that light color. I'm just gonna do a couple X's here. So it kind of looks like these two pieces are being held together. Now for small pieces like this, I actually really like using scissors. The key is to, again, keep the blade perpendicular. If you cut it to the side, it's gonna get all furry like that. But if you keep the scissors straight, you can get a fairly good cut. I'm just gonna cut another strip. And I don't really care if these are perfect, because nothing is perfect, and this is a fun abstract panel. I'm just gonna lay it out there. And I'm gonna do them one at a time. So I'm gonna actually take this off, oops, and tape that one down, cut around it, and then put this one on top and cut around that. Okay, now that I've got my X's all added in and taped up on the back, I'm gonna take a look at this. And I still don't feel like it's balanced yet. I feel like there's a lot of big spaces up here and no small details. So I'm gonna start playing around with that. Now there is a design theory that odd numbers are actually more visually appealing or visually comfortable to look at. So if I'm looking at this, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the dark walnut. And I've only got 2 of this darker, I don't know what it is, some kind of curly burly thing. But I only have 2 of these reddish parts. So I'm gonna add 1 more of that. Now I really like this wood because it's got this really beautiful grain line. It's got a really nice color to it as well. I have these larger pieces that are going to highlight the grain, but this piece really needs some smaller elements. So I'm going to try and play around with something in there. So we've got these nice curved lines and round shapes, and then a lot of straight lines. And I thought this kind of needed another component, shape-wise as well as color. So I kind of cut this goofy piece right here. I'm just gonna line it up with that seam, figure out where I like it. So I kind of like it right there. So I'm going to tape this down. Actually, I'll tape it on the other side. I'm going to cut that out. And this is the piece that I'm removing, so I'm just going to break it off. So now that corner is nice and taped in, it's not going to move anywhere. Okay, now evaluating this, I'm really starting to like it. I think it looks really cool. I think it might need some more details, maybe in the corners. And I'm just gonna keep playing around with it. I'm gonna keep cutting out pieces and placing them around, seeing where I like them. And then eventually it'll get to a place where I absolutely love it, and then I know it's done.